Hello and welcome to the Yerky Boys. May the Kandrona shine and strengthen you. My name is Will.
My name is Jonathan.
And we are the Yerky Boys. That's us. All right, so this episode's going to be a little bit different than our other ones.
How so?
We're going to try to do, I don't know, kind of like a little look back, a little recap just see where we've come so far, think about where we've come, where we're going, a time for us to be a little bit less structured than usual, a little experimental.
Yeah.
You're laughing.
No, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Yeah, for everyone listening, we're not covering not for anyone who's not listening, just to clarify. Right. We're not covering any book in particular. We won't be running through the plot of a book. No. Instead, we are looking back at the first 15 books. I believe that number is correct. That's including Megamorphs #1 and the Andalite Chronicles.
Right.
So we're looking back. You designated this mark, this line, this dividing line. You have split the books into what we are kind of thinking of as seasons.
Yes.
And this is our season 1 retrospective.
Yeah, a little season 1. So this will have been season 1 of our podcast. If you've been listening this far, you've made it through the first season of the podcast.
Now we can actually mark that is a thing on podcasts. We could designate them as seasons, but I haven't done that. So
I don't want to do that.
Yeah, so when you say that, it's confusing.
No, the whole thing is one season, but this is the first season of that season.
Makes sense. And more importantly, the first season of the books. Like I do think there's it feels like maybe unofficially there's kind of a I don't know. I mean, I haven't read the next books yet, so I guess I can't say. But right now it feels like the way we're structuring it, there's potentially going to be, I don't know, things have happened. This feels like there's a demarcation point right here before we move on.
Yeah, and we can talk about this a little bit more maybe next recap ep once you've actually seen it. But yeah, for me, this always feels like a little bit of a split. I don't know that this would, maybe if you were being very strict about it, you would find more of a split, like, oh, when did she start using her ghostwriters or this, that, and the other. But for me, it does feel like the Chronicles sort of denote something like an era of the books here.
Which season do you think is folklore? Which one do you think is fearless?
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah,
I don't know that any of the seasons really get to be folklore here.
Well, I think Visser's might be reputation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Strong point.
Sorry, you were saying something. I interrupted you.
No, I liked that interruption. It was really good.
Thanks. Our listeners liked it too.
Yeah, this is similar to Taylor Swift in another way because of all the mind control that's going on. I don't know if you know about how her most recent tour has been a MK Ultra style psyop, and that's why people have been losing their memories.
Right.
Right. Most people are aware of this problem. By the time this podcast comes out, most the news will have spread and people will get it.
Yeah. I mean, you know what else is in the news is the fact that aliens exist. I don't know if you heard that.
I didn't hear that.
I mean, that's a little more relevant to our podcast. There is evidence of UFOs and witnesses that have been talking about non-human entities they've discovered. Like the government is releasing documents. No one's really talking about it because no one gives a shit anymore. But it's true. They're like UFOs and aliens are real. Like this. I'm not.
Is this like that? Is this like that guy last year who was like whatever, like a ex like minister of defense or some shit from Israel who was just like, yeah, aliens are real. It's all real and whatever. Or is this some other thing that also happened?
This is some other thing. Okay. There's people are coming out and it's there. Just look it up. But I'm just
Do
saying
your
maybe
own research.
Andalites might be coming. We might be talking about this at a pretty good time.
Well, this is good. I will do my own research because it might end up being relevant to the next book.
I shared a link and you didn't click on it, obviously. So.
No, I didn't. Why would I click on it? Where'd you share this link?
In our Discord channel, of course.
Well, I don't remember it.
It was
I
days ago.
Well, why would... Listen, mostly you just share dumb TikToks and stuff, so I probably didn't look.
No, I actually share really good TikToks. Now, but okay, so we need to get into the show.
Well, see, I hope the listeners are appreciating our less structured show already.
Yeah, this is like the intro episode. This is one you can skip, but we will actually talk. Unlike the intro episode, we will talk about the books in this episode.
You can't skip this one, right? The intro episode you can skip because that was just us getting our footing. At this point, right, you are presumably at least somewhat invested in the show, right? You're not just watching or listening, whatever, for the Animorphs. You're listening because you want to hear our beautiful voices and
that's
our
necessarily
playful
true.
banter. And so, right, this is an important one. It might not develop the plot of Animorphs, but it will be important for our character development, and so you do need to listen to it. You cannot skip this one. If it's so bad that you can skip it, we won't release it.
So we're releasing it no matter what. I don't care. I'm putting it out. Now, just to clarify, just to add a little more context for everybody, the books we're discussing, the first book was released in June of 1996. And the Andalite Chronicles, our most recent covered book, came out in November 1997. So we're talking about roughly a year and a half of time that we have covered in a few months.
Which is kind of unbelievable, right? Like, there's just the sheer amount of shit that came out in a year and a half here.
Yeah, and I'd also like to give some context as to kind of where we were at in the world around this time, the late 90s.
Yeah, tell us.
Bill Clinton, beginning of the year 1997, was sworn in for his second term as president.
Mm-hmm.
Madeleine Albright became the first female Secretary of State.
Mm-hmm. Yes, so Queen.
Yes, Queen. We stand. Yes, Queen, Secretary of State.
Gatekeep, girl boss, gaslight. Different order, but that sort of thing.
Bill Clinton passed a ban on federal funding for human cloning research. So thanks a lot, Bill Clinton. Could have
now,
clones.
97 was, I believe, Dolly the sheep, was it not?
Probably.
Are you not pulling this from like the 97 Wikipedia page or something right now?
What do I have it
you
all
just
right?
Know this?
I just know this stuff. I was a 90s kid. Every 90s kid knows this stuff.
But you don't know about Dolly the sheep. You don't know what year Dolly was.
That might have been 96 or 98.
Maybe it was 96.
Listen, the Halley Bop comet, however you're supposed to say that. Is that how you say that? Hale Bop? Halley Bop?
I don't know. I say
Hale
Hale,
Bop,
but I don't.
I'm thinking of Halley's. There's another comet, isn't there? A Halley's
comet? Yeah.
Why am I
not that one?
Right. This is a different one. This is the Hale Bop comet.
Right. That's the Heaven's Gate, right?
Yeah,
was
probably.
That a different one?
Yes. No, that was the correct. Well,
is this the Heaven's Gate year?
Yes.
I thought that was a different. Okay.
This is the Heaven's Gate year.
Oh shit! Yeah, that's. I mean, now you're speaking my language.
I bet I am. Tony Blair became prime minister over in the UK. That's pretty exciting. IBM program defeated a chess world champion for the first time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So again, we're seeing how technology is advancing. How that was could be
97. I thought that was more like 94, 95.
Why are you questioning me? I am telling you
because
what
I'm curious about this. I thought Deep Blue was earlier. Was like Deep Blue's first matches earlier?
I don't maybe, but this was the first time it defeated a world champion. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's when it beated Kasparov. Yeah, it beated Kasparov in '97. Yeah, you see how fucking smart I am.
We're really we're recording later than we usually do, folks, okay? So just please forgive us. And this episode is a shit show already.
No,
Now,
this is
now this one I think is very interesting to me. As you know, this is relevant to my interest because the summer of '97. By the way, I just kind of skipped '96 because, like, whatever. Summer of
yeah, not a
'97
very interesting year.
is when the first Harry Potter book was published. So that to me, that's interesting because first of all, I'm a Potterhead. Obviously, we all know I stan all the Potters, but also
Oh yeah,
in my
yeah. I know also that you stand by every
yeah
word that Rowling has ever written.
yes
That's just
all
the kind of guy you are.
well to be
And our
honest,
listeners, they
no,
can
I
take
want
away
to
from that whatever they
no.
want.
I
They
would
can
like to
see you in whatever
no.
light they want.
Just let me. I just want to set the record straight a little bit. I am not that big a
Uh,
fan of her books. I do like her Twitter account. I do like her tweets. I like the fact that Dumbledore is gay because I am an ally. Now, the reason that that's interesting to me, when I just hear silence, I have to hope that you're laughing and it's just not picking up in my headphones and it's not just dead air. Okay.
yeah, well, I mean, I might just be laughing quietly, or maybe I'm judging you with a
Here's why
stern look.
that's truly so weird to me is because in my mind, I have such a better memory of Harry Potter. I mean, I've reread them more, and obviously there were more. There was the movies. There are things like in popular culture reinforcing those more so than Animorphs. But in my memory, Animorphs is like a thing that happened much earlier in my life, and then like Harry Potter was a later thing. And the fact that they were really contemporary with each other kind of blows my mind a little. Like that's not how I think of them in my own personal timeline.
Yeah. Now,
Uh,
when did Harry Potter get huge? Was it actually around the first book? Because when I first read Harry Potter, I believe the third book had either just come out or was about to come out.
yeah, I
Like
should say
we
this
were
was.
multiple books in before the boom hit me personally.
I remember definitely reading it. I think when the second book maybe was already out. I'm
Okay.
positive I read the third book like I was anticipating the third book. But I do think you're right. It took a little while. It was published in London. It may not have made its way to the US full on until maybe the year after or so. So maybe that explains some of my confusion on that. I don't know, a few other things. The first episode of South Park aired this year.
Damn.
Pretty important. I know, right?
Yeah, for all those kids who were reading Animorphs and then watching South Park.
How about this one? The first color photograph appeared on the front page of the New York Times. Not like the first ever color photograph, but the first time there was one on the New York Times front page.
You're losing me with that one.
It's all right. Okay, we can move on from that.
There's something about the Mars rover or some shit was 97.
No, it turns out, yeah, nothing really happened with Mars that year.
Oh, okay.
The Pathfinder, the Pathfinder, and the Sojourner both landed on Mars.
Oh, okay. So it was 97 when that happened.
Yeah, that's right. I also
Oh,
just want
good.
to say
I do remember this.
we are where we end. Remember November '97.
Yeah.
We are
Yeah.
a month before the release of James Cameron's Titanic.
God damn. Now I know Titanic. I'm positive Titanic is referenced in Animorphs at some point. I
Yeah.
think that can't not be true.
Rachel and Cassie are going to see that thing 50 times. And
Yeah.
Marco's going to like pretend he doesn't like it, but
Oh yeah,
he's in
no,
there too.
Marco fucking loves Titanic. He'll make all kinds of jokes about how it's so cheesy and sad, but he'll make the way he'll tell the jokes, you'll know he must have seen it. He must have seen it a lot because he's like, there's like minute details in there.
Marco's a real Jack Dawson type. So, but anyway,
maybe sure.
Oh, come on! You don't think Marco's a Jack Dawson type?
I
What do you think he's a Fabrizio? He has to be one of them.
I just don't know that he fits into either of those molds.
He's smooth and suave, and he knows how to spit over the side of a balcony.
I just don't know.
Well, we're gonna.
Smooth and suave.
Yeah, he's smooth and
Marco thinks of
suave.
himself as smooth and suave. Maybe you
I,
just think that because
okay.
you're too much like Marco.
I don't like this. This is slander against Marco, and it's fucked up, and it's upsetting me. But we'll get back. But anyway, that's where we're at, and that's the place and time we're in. So I just thought that was a little bit of context for us.
Yeah, that's fun. That's good. It
That
is interesting to see how like exactly how contemporary it is with Harry Potter because people like to draw these comparisons with Animorphs a lot. Where it'll be like, why don't maybe you go read the series by the children's author who isn't a piece of shit. Um,
right.
just a
Which
thought.
which one's which?
Right. Well, it's the one who put all this bleak shit into the books, right?
I do
That's
like
what a
Kay Applegate's tweets too. To be fair.
she makes some good ones. That I like when she tweets about Doggo and Pupper.
Yeah, and the removal of the one and only Ivan from Disney Plus, which we're
Mm.
protesting.
Yeah, she did a lot of stuff in support of like some not the current Writers Guild strike, but something with like a strike with writers and like Scholastic or something. I don't remember.
Sure,
You
why
see how
not?
much attention I pay to her tweets. And she
But
recently tweeted about a book called Otter. It's like about a river otter, but
that's
it's got
okay.
two
That's great.
D's because
We
it's
don't
odd.
we don't we don't have time for that.
We have time. We can talk about whatever we want this episode.
We don't have time for that. But I do think it's also it's not just fluff to talk about the context of the real life because ostensibly these books are taking place in this time period.
That
So
yes.
all these things are occurring theoretically in these books during this sequence of events. There's a Bill Clinton presidency. There's mass suicides. All this
Yeah,
stuff is
it's
happening.
we're starting to get into that fictional space, where when you set fiction in the real world and you slowly have to deviate from real events, right? Like
Yeah.
some of the scientific stuff has already been disrupted by Axe, inserting his weird zero space equations into technology here. So that path is already kind of off. And I'm also not entirely sure what to make of the Bill Clinton presidency because we will deal with political figures and things of that nature. They have to deal with. I mean, we've already dealt with like the governor or whatever of California, who was not the Terminator at this point, but will eventually be. Um,
Oh yeah, you would have said the governor.
the governor, yeah, yeah, exactly. Marco couldn't have contained himself.
Well, the president better be Bill Clinton, or that makes no sense.
I mean, I just I'm trying to. I don't think it's ever explicit that the president isn't Bill Clinton, but I feel like it's one of those like fictional presidents where it's like, it's Mr. President. He's some old white guy. He could be any old white guy. Uh, because it's all. It's interesting because that trope did survive Barack Obama, but that's a little off track. Um,
Now, sometimes you get a black president, like on Rick and Morty.
yeah, I guess that's true.
Um,
Only on very progressive shows though, like Rick and Morty.
right. Now, I don't remember what I was going to say, but I was going to say something for the record.
Okay. Good.
All right. So, do we want to get started and talk about this
Yeah.
season 1 overall? Our thoughts?
Yeah. So okay. So we've set the scene. So there. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So one of the reasons that I split this off, and I don't know if I want to launch right into a discussion on the potential for adaptations for this sort of a thing. But one of the reasons why I break this off here is because, one thing I always end up thinking about is if you're going to adapt Animorphs, how would you go about doing it? We've got this proposed movie that seems like it might never see the light of day. Um, but it always felt to me like Animorphs would best be adapted as a TV show. Um, and I don't know if you would agree with that. Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't. We can, you can chime in if you want. But we, it always felt to me like this is how you would divide seasons, right? You have your big like end of season movie that's giving us a bunch of lore dump in our chronicles. But then over the course of the season, a lot of what we see in these first books is kind of set up, right? We've got a lot of books. Almost every book is just introducing, maybe not every book, but it's introducing wild new shit, right? You've got the first book that's introducing all the everything, right? We're introducing Axe. We're introducing Marco's mom. We got to get Jake's brother in there. We got to get the Elemist in there. We got to do a first time with the controller. One of them gets taken over by a Yerk or whatever. We got to introduce the Chi. We don't
We
got
got
it,
to
but we
introduce
want to introduce.
Sauron.
Right, yeah, got to introduce Sauron. You got to throw all your concepts out there, and it's even got kind of a nice ending point for the series with the Free Hork-Bajir, where you have a sort of like, there's
I'll
not
take
that
one.
much that they've done in this season. They've destroyed the Earth-based Kandrona, which is a pretty big win, and they've created this colony of Free Hork-Bajir, which is a pretty big win. I guess not colony, but this family, these two.
Yeah.
Um, uh, those are both pretty big wins for the Animorphs, but they aren't like these big blows.
They aren't wins
Um,
for the anti-Yerk movement
yeah,
necessarily.
yeah, but it's very like starter level, and
Right.
I think as we progress, we'll see like these bigger plots in the books. It won't,
Mm.
there'll be fewer introductions and more like we're trying to do something here, right? We've
Mm.
got some lead on something, we're trying to do something. And they'll introduce a bunch of crazy new ideas as they do it, but they won't be the same kind of like foundational earth-shattering things that like the Chi are.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it in that way, but it's true if you there are many big complicated ideas thrown at you. But in terms of what these teenagers actually accomplish, it's not that much.
Yeah.
like for on a personal level, it's like, oh, like we made friends with an alien and
Mhm.
we went back in time. Like the crazy things happen to them, but not much of it in the scheme of the Yerk War. It's not exactly monumental.
Yeah, and that is not gonna
Monumentous?
necessarily
Are those the same
stop.
word? Sorry, continue.
I guess why not? I know what you mean. Everyone knows what we mean. Uh, because like, but like going forward, you still end up with this episodic thing where it's like, listen, I can't necessarily do, um, I can't like, totally change the arc of the series because we're not ready to end it yet. But it'll be less along the lines of just like, oh, there's like a logging thing in the forest and we got to stop it, and maybe there'll be more something like there. Oh, I found something that maybe we could do, something like very proactive rather than more reactive. And then maybe they never try it again, but whatever. And we will see more use of like arc plots, more use of like the Yerks have a plot, and oh, hey, they still have that plot in the next book.
Wow.
So,
See, I had imagined, and maybe this is also true. I think both things could be true.
uh
I assumed that the further we went on, the more filler there would be before we got to actually important
oh,
developments.
oh, there will be. In some ways, you could say there is more filler, right? Because or that is more filler, right? Because at least here, when I'm establishing something foundationally important, that is important, right? You have to keep that. Whereas if I'm doing something that's like, oh, well, here's my little my little Yerk arc plot that doesn't actually lead into the conclusion of the series. Well, if you don't like it, you don't need that one, right? That's just some books that do that. Or like, here's something very interesting that I found that I can proactively try to do to actually strike at the Yerks. Oh, but we only really did it in that one book, so it's kind of like filler.
Okay. Yeah, that makes
I don't know.
sense.
It'll be. We can potentially. We'll see that as it shows up in these next couple books. And this next section is going to be the shortest, I think, out of all of them, just because of where the Chronicles books are.
Right. So yeah, if anyone wants to play along at home, you'll know when a season break is coming after when there's a Chronicles book.
Yeah, that's when we're going to try to do it.
All right. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Are there any other, or can we talk about more kind of broad impressions of this first quote unquote season? I mean, for you,
Yeah.
was there anything that you were surprised by or that changed your mind about in any way rereading this, or have you reread it too recently that you're kind of just where you are?
I'm not gonna change my mind on it that much. I don't think I like because I haven't changed my mind on that many things.
You don't change your mind at all, really. You're a
Yeah,
stubborn man.
I'm a stubborn man. No, but I have also reread it too many times, and also too many times, as an adult. So there's not as much there. Um, I have it is interesting to kind of slow down in these books because normally if I'm doing a reread, it takes like an hour maybe to read a book, maybe two if you're kind of taking your time and being like a little bit plodding along and savoring it. So it's pretty easy to just burn through one or two in a day or do one, then the next day do another, and you get through the series very, very quickly. But we're really slowing down on these, doing
Yeah.
them one a week, and I'm reading them very slowly because I'm trying to take notes because I want to make sure that I have a coherent summary. Um, so it is making me like really kind of pay attention to all of the little details here and there. Most of which I remember, but like I do think one thing that has very much struck me is the fact that Jake's books are more boring than I thought. Right. I think I've been paying more attention to the differences in the narration than I otherwise would have. Right.
Mm.
Where it's like, oh yeah, these Marco books feel very different than Cassie books, than Rachel books, than Jake books, in a way that they all blend together if you read them, bam, 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 bam. And that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, you can't if there's any aspect you particularly like or dislike, you're not just like you said, same thing with, it's like binging a TV show
hmm
versus watching it week to week. You have to really sit with that book for the week to the point where, like I said, with, reading the Andalite Chronicles, I almost feel, I'm like nostalgic for the for the Animorphs books. It feels like I've been in another universe, and I kind of like when we eventually next week return to normal Animorphs books, it's almost going to feel refreshing to be like, oh yeah, there's kids. They're doing kid stuff sometimes. It's not all just aliens fighting each other, and that's a thing that's very
yeah,
different from just barreling through them.
yeah, that is true because you would have finished the Andalite Chronicles is like the length of a real book, but not like a long real book.
Right.
Um, so like that also would just be like your little break. Okay, I read the Andalite Chronicles today. All right, well then I'll go back and
And I don't know about you, but in general, I mean, I don't, other than like when I was in school, I don't know. I can hardly think of any times when I read the same book as someone else, let alone discussed it with them. So, just the act of doing that, of taking time to actually analyze and think about out loud with someone what I have read is a very different experience for not since English classes. have
Mm.
I ever done that in my life. I've never been in a book club or anything.
Yeah, no, nor I. That is, doing it simultaneously is not something that I've ever done.
Yeah, right. So it's a different way of digesting everything. That's I don't know, if we weren't doing a podcast, it might feel like slow to the point where I was getting impatient or frustrated. And I would just
Hmm.
want to watch the next thing, but I haven't felt that way too much. I've been
That's
pretty
good.
much fine taking my
Yeah,
time.
it is always fun being like kind of hyped to be like, yeah, now that I've read it, I'm excited to see what the other person is going to say, because I am one of the big things that makes me excited for this podcast is that I am sharing it with you. You have not read it before, which is great to me, right? I want to show this to my friends who have not experienced it so that I can reference it and talk about it, and I want to know their reactions. So, it's great to be able to look forward to that and know that it's coming. Um,
Yeah, it's great to, as you said, have the sharing and get the reactions.
right. Book 12, the reaction.
um,
Right, and you got to do it fast before it's book 11, the forgotten.
yeah, of course, of course. And if you didn't, whatever, maybe there are some things I don't even mention. Those would be, of course, the secret.
Right.
And like we
Which
said,
book is that?
that's book. Uh, the secret is book. I don't remember. Sorry. Oh, that was 11. That's or no, that's I don't know. It's the skunk one. I don't remember which number
Yeah, it's
that
that's
is.
that's book 9.
Great. It's book 9. Anyway,
You can tell because it's a Cassie book, so it's got to be 4 or 9.
right, of course. This series really helps you with your times tables that way. I
Yeah. Oh,
mean,
yeah. If you want to learn your modulo function,
don't ever say that again.
if you want.
Just don't ever say it again. Yeah, so for me this was my really like we have established at the beginning of the podcast. I had a baseline of what Animorphs was and what the general concept was behind the series, but it certainly went to places I did not remember or expect it to go. It's definitely leans much more into the sci-fi elements than I remembered. I would if you told me 6 months ago or before we started this podcast, if you told me that these books, if you just explained to me the Elemist and the Pemalites and the Chi, I don't know if I ever would have believed that was a real thing that happens in these books. I think I would have thought, no, that does not happen. They turn into cows and they have adventures. Like that's all that happened. I know there's an alien and I know there's brain slugs, but the rest of that can't be real.
Yeah, it's so hard not to say all that shit too, because like when you have someone who hasn't read Animorphs, the first thing you want to, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's a, and you want to be like, oh, you got to read this series. There's a crazy all powerful space wizard Elemis, blah blah blah. It turns out dogs are just alien thetans attached to it, and
it's
they have androids. You just want to spoil everything.
it really does such a 180 from, I mean, but then again, on the other hand, I'm like, well, isn't the core premise truly pretty batshit already? But I'm just used to it. Like I've
Hmm.
just and I also think, again, we're not talking about the actual TV show that came later, but I feel like maybe I'm wrong. My vague memory and suspicion is that show does kind of. I'm assuming it probably shies away from the weirder elements of these books. And like we had Transformers, we had Power Rangers, so kind of the idea of like we're this and we turn into that is just one that's more common in pop
Yeah.
culture and not as weird.
Yeah, and I have talked to people who never read Animorphs who just kind of assumed, oh yeah, it's like they're all just like Beast Boy, right? Like that makes I can relate that to something I've seen. And like that's not what it's like, but I can see why that doesn't sound that crazy when you put it in those terms.
Yeah, even though it kind of is. I mean, even in the first book, even that invasion opening scene,
Yeah.
a lot of things happen that are pretty crazy.
Yeah, I mean, if you just say they turn into animals and there's slugs that control your brain, then that all sounds tropey and normal. But yeah, I mean, as soon as you start getting into like all of the specifics of how
Yes.
everything works, that's when you start being like, wait a second, this is fucking crazy.
Andalite's thought speech, the 2 hour time limit, all this stuff adds up.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Maybe I could also say I think at the beginning we were talking about what our expectations or my expectations were for the prose, so to speak,
Hmm.
the writing, and I've
Yeah.
found that for the most part I really have not. It's obviously like geared towards kids and kids can read it, but I haven't found any of it to be insulting on any level or so dumbed down or simplified or grammatically bad. Like I wouldn't call any of the writing in these books bad strictly from a not like a plotting perspective, but just the writing itself. So I don't know if that's
Yeah. And
my
I think I
standards are real
have
low.
No, I think I have a higher opinion of it than when I started, and part of that might be that I'm not speed reading through anymore. Um, not just be, and that might give me more ability to say, like in these earlier books, like I can really reflect on, oh, this book is like interesting and different in a way. I have a suspicion, and we're gonna see if it gets confirmed that I'm gonna start having more issues with that as we get deeper into the later filler and the ghost writers and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Um, and if I'm reading through them really quickly, it doesn't take long before I'm there, and then it all kind of blends together. Where was it good? Where was it bad? I don't know. It was all kind of the average of all of it. We are starting to see one of the hallmarks of Animorphs, which is the sound effects. Uh, in like the first book, I remember being surprised when I had to spend a whole week on it that they didn't really do that much, but it didn't take us too many books to start getting all the like
Too
huge all
many
cap sound
books.
effects. Yeah, that
Sorry.
take up the entire page.
Just reminded me of that funny video.
Mm.
Yeah,
Which
I
one?
like
No, keep
uh
going. Don't
well,
listen to me.
there's this video. No, I like the sound effects too. I don't know that I have a yeah, I mean they're fun. They're a stylistic flair kind of a thing that it gives it a little more personal character, I suppose. I don't know that I would miss them if they were gone or anything. But
Yeah, I don't know. There's certain sounds that just like even real world sounds like when a hawk does a cry, it sounds like seer, like Tseeeer, all in all
yeah.
caps. That's what it sounds like because it's written so many damn times in the book like that.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It really is. And I guess I've kind of talked about this in some other ones too, but I'm praising the like writing from a grammar and prose perspective, but or at least not damning it, but the structure of the books is where I've run up against the most issues, I think. Just or the pacing really, which I think
Hmm.
is a side effect of just how quickly these books had to come out and how they have to meet a certain length,
Yeah.
whether that be whether I feel like they are too long or too short, sometimes both.
Hmm.
That there it feels sometimes it does feel like you almost want an adaptation of these to a whether it be excuse me, TV show or maybe even the comic books that are coming out now, which I haven't read. Because it sometimes it feels like, man, this is an amazing rough draft, And if there was
Mhm.
just if they just had the chance to do like a second pass of editing, or even like make this one 50 pages longer or something, like you can just, it feels like sometimes that would really make this book. Sometimes it feels like, and I'm gonna say this, and it sounds insulting, and maybe it
Uh-oh.
is, but but sometimes it feels like, oh man, this is great for an Animorphs book, and if it were, if but like, and if they weren't able to like do this and this, and maybe you could gear it up a little bit to a slightly older audience or something, then it's like, this is almost good enough to be like a real book. And that sounds, I don't really mean it to be that harsh, and I don't I do really like these books, but they are like, they're kids books.
Yeah.
I mean, they're better than most kids books, but there's places I don't. There are places where they transcend that genre, and then there are places where I don't think they necessarily do.
Yeah, structure is another thing that I've noticed a lot more. I don't know how much of it is because you were pointing it out, and how much of it is because I have to sit with it and write outlines about it now. But it's something I have noticed more on this pass through. Like, I don't think I was just like I was nearly as aware of just how rushed the endings of these books get, where they'll be like, we need to wrap it up. Oh shit, there's okay, big action scene that took 3 pages, done.
Yeah.
Or that sometimes things will just stretch out in the middle in ways that like, oh, I just read 50 pages and I guess I'm just gonna put one section over that, whatever. um
Right.
yeah, or I guess I was always aware of the fact that every book is structured effectively exactly the same. Like, they have this scene, this scene, this, and you can just fill in what they do there. Um, but I don't think I was consciously aware of it. I just kind of, knew it in the back of my mind. But now I'm kind of looking at it and like, yep, here's this part, here's this part. That's when we're gonna stop. Um, in some ways that's nice when writing my outlines, because I can kind of say like, okay, how many chapters am I going to put here? Like, am I going to break it in the middle of this chapter? Am I going to put 3, 2, 1? How long is it going? And I can sort of know when I start. No, this is where we're at this point, so we'll probably have about this much, without having to finish it
Yeah, I feel
or
like they
remember.
disguise that. To me, I think they do a pretty good job most of the time disguising that formula. Maybe it's just because I'm distracted by all the new ideas that are
Hmm.
hitting me. I mean, I definitely see it sometimes. You kind of have like you know, they do a crazy thing they're not supposed to do, then they go talk in the barn, then like they have a Yerk mission and they go test it out, and then they go back to the barn, and then they go
Right.
do it for
It
real.
fails miserably, yeah, and then they go
Yeah.
back to the barn, yeah.
and then they and then they have a big action scene, and then they have a wrap up scene.
Yeah.
But it's like, not every book has, and then an Ellimist teleports them to another
Yeah, no,
universe, or
sometimes it's totally different. And that could be what you're saying, part of the writing trick, right? How do you get these things produced so damn quickly? Is she might have literally just had an outline that she basically she starts with a template of the book and she just literally fills in the blanks on it. Like,
yeah,
okay, this scene, this needs to happen. All right, let's write one of those.
right. Yeah, that helps a lot. You don't have that crutch for Andalite Chronicles, but
No.
for those regular
She got
books,
that
you
one out
sure
right.
do.
Yeah. I mean, one of the other things that, and I think I brought this up before, but it might have been Michael Grant who said it on Twitter. But he said something to the effect of, the really nice thing about these books coming out being like so short and coming out monthly and being very episodic and not having some overarching structure, is that they could just kind of throw whatever ideas they wanted at it. If it was too stupid or crazy, then that's fine. Just won't matter next book. We don't need to keep doing that. If it's great, and this has huge advantages because sometimes you strike gold and you're like, oh damn, that's awesome, I'm gonna keep using it. And sometimes you do something stupid and you never revisit, but everybody loves it because it's just a stupid thing that everybody loves.
Well,
And
yeah.
sometimes it's shit. But the point is, like, if you had to go to your publisher ahead of time and say, this is my arc over the course of these, these 1,000 pages, blah blah blah. Everything would have to be sort of serious and reasonable. You wouldn't get to take such wild swings, as opposed to the publisher just saying, listen, just give me one every month and I'm happy. Then you can kind of do whatever the hell you want.
What you're saying, I think, really reflects a change in the way we as a society consume media in
Mm-hmm.
general.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I mean, when you look at TV shows from the past or comic books, a pretty even more direct comparison because those also did come out monthly usually. That was kind of the thing. They would just throw some shit at the wall. There's a villain this week. Spider-Man gets married next month, and then he's divorced, and then he's dead, and then he comes back. And it wasn't really expected that the audience would be consuming every single one of these. In fact, the opposite. It was more assumed that, oh, they're going to pick up one here and there. We need to make it so they can jump in at any point and have a good time. And now we live in the age of streaming services and DVDs, and it's the assumption is a thing exists, a piece of media exists. I need to be able to consume it from start to finish and have it make sense and be satisfying.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe Animorphs was kind of straddling that line between those two eras. I don't know when I would put an actual. It was probably I was around this. I feel like, I mean, we're kind of in the middle period when you look at things like X-Files and Buffy. I feel like those are both kind of walking those
Mm-hmm.
lines, and we're right before like Sopranos and stuff really shifts that.
Yeah.
Um, but it's yeah, like maybe we weren't meant to analyze these books the way we're doing it. Or they never expected anyone to actually sit down and question why Melissa Chapman never comes back because they're like
Yeah.
no
Yeah.
one no one's gonna why would no one cares, nobody will care about that. They didn't anticipate this level of scrutiny. That's kind of
Yeah.
the
I mean,
norm
I,
now.
I think there is something to that, and I think that there is. This is sort of me wanting my own downfall when I think about adapting Animorphs, because I think this is part of why I want to see the adaptation is because it got to take such wild swings and do such crazy things. I want to see a coherent story that only takes the good, crazy, wild swings and
Yeah.
cuts out all the garbage and makes something cool and interesting. But like what you're actually gonna get is something that doesn't take those swings and actually just spends an entire season building up to the point where they walk home from the construction site in the last episode, and that's season one, and then it gets canceled because nobody liked it. Um, maybe I want something that can't exist, because I want it to be the best of both worlds, and that's just not a thing that's gonna happen.
I hate to quote someone who I can't remember who said it, but
Well, you said
there's
it now.
there's some yeah, it's my thought. There's some tweet by someone more talented than I am. You could probably Google it. Who about how like if there was a show called Surf Dracula,
Right.
that Dracula would be surfing in every episode, and now it's like 12 episodes, and at the end of season one, he finally finds his surfboard.
Right. I've seen the Surf Dracula tweet. I know what you're talking about.
Great.
I'm a
So
cool
we're
kid.
we're on the same page here. Yeah, and I mean that's kind of goes back to what I was saying before about how I feel like you said I would just if you could just refine so many of these things just a little bit and like put them into that perfect form. I feel like it's similar to even other adapted media, like being a comic book fan and being like, there are a lot of really stupid comic books, or even like the Lord of the Rings. I mean, you might, you don't have to naysay any aspect of the books, but you might be like, not everyone that I know is going to be into these books, but Peter Jackson movies come along and you can be like, oh, they like made it, they softened some of those edges so that I can show this to people and they can understand why it's so great. And maybe that's kind of what you maybe want for like Animorphs.
It's more like he sharpened some of those edges, but
Yeah, yeah, he did something to
take
the edges. I don't know.
taking all the great songs about bath time, and all the parts where he rambles on about I don't know, the woods or some shit, and turns it into a big action sequence that everybody loves.
Right, right.
I mean, maybe
Um,
that's what you need. Maybe you need something that somehow elicits the same, like, after the fact emotional response, but like in the moment is completely different from Animorphs.
yeah, which is sometimes what a good adaptation is
Yeah,
takes what works and it gives you the same vibes, but isn't just a shot for shot remake or whatever.
yeah. I'm
Wow.
curious about this stupid upcoming movie because, as far as I know, they never said that it was canceled. Like, it was announced in like 3 years ago from when I'm recording this. Now it was announced in 2020, and originally K.A. Applegate and Michael Grant were on board, but then they left, citing like creative differences. And they basically, it seemed like what they were saying was that the studio was making a whole bunch of decisions about the direction and how they were going to take it and blah blah blah, and they weren't on board with it, and they didn't agree, and they didn't get any say in it. There were a lot of people shooting rumors around that it was going to turn into just like a stereotypical funny superhero type movie, and wouldn't have enough like gore or bleak depictions of war for them, I guess. I don't know, but I never saw that confirmed anywhere, and now I haven't heard anything about this movie in like 2 years or something.
I'm sure it's going to happen. It may not happen from whatever studio or creative people this version was about. But if there's a property that was ever of interest to anyone, someone's going to bring it back eventually. um, but I mean, we don't need to get into this. Maybe we get into this. This could be more episodes. But I, I feel like as much as I would like to see a live action Animorphs too, I feel like animation really would be the
Yeah,
best way to go.
I 100% agree with you on this.
I mean, that's often the case for something like this, unless we get James Cameron to do a full mocap.
Yeah, I don't even know. James Cameron is the perfect guy for the Chronicles books, particularly the Hork-Bajir Chronicles, but also Andalite Chronicles to a large part of it. But the regular books, I don't even know that he would be the guy for it.
Well, I don't. Well, I also, I mean, you were saying it before. I guess I didn't really comment on it, but yeah, I mean, I think a TV show, you could do these as movies, but you're losing a lot. So,
Yeah,
like, which is true of any book series, but
yeah.
you could do it and you could make like a trilogy, but that's a lot of things to cut down.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of the most interesting parts of Animorphs are the side bits, right? It's not like you're not saying like, okay, what's my season 1 movie? Okay, we introduce the Yerks and the Andalites. We introduce Tom, and maybe we show Marco's mother or something like that. They find and destroy the Earthbound Kandrona or something, right? We go from always being on the defensive, oh no, they're gonna catch us, but hey, we stopped them. Oh no, they're gonna get us. Oh, but we stopped them too. Let's actually take a strike back. We've destroyed the Kandrona. Now we've hurt them for real. That's our movie. That's a fine movie, I guess. But like, the most interesting parts are all the weird ass shit that has nothing to do with that crap. And
I would
that's really where
love,
the TV show helps, is you get a lot more time to just spend on
yeah.
doing stuff that doesn't really matter but is great.
I want to like I can't do it yet because I'll have to have read all these books, but I would love to try to outline what a trilogy would be and like
Mm.
where some of that stuff would happen. I do wonder if for a TV show, for instance, how do you handle the Chronicles books? Is that just a very special episode, or
Yeah,
is
or like
that
that's your like made for TV movie that comes out at the
right?
end in
Or
between each
maybe,
season.
or it's like they maybe get those things through flashbacks, or like they try to like tie it in more to the main events of the story.
Yeah. I mean, if you're doing Animorphs as a trilogy, you basically just can't do the Chronicles.
Yeah,
Is the part of
right.
the problem here.
Yeah, you can allude to them,
Yeah, you can get
but
like maybe one scene from each.
right.
You could probably do a decent amount of Visser, but we'll get to that if we ever outline the whole thing. The problem is if you wanted to do Animorphs as a trilogy, I have a strong the last 6 or 7 books ish, 6, 7, 8, something like that. Books are like that's got to be one movie, and maybe more than one movie, maybe even as much as two movies, because so much of it up until that is the part where it's gonna actually turn into like, no, we have an arc plot and every book leads into every other book and we're throwing away our previous structure. We're finishing our damn series now. Up until that point, it is just, let's keep doing episodes.
Yeah, I do think this first season feels like maybe you could do. I don't know if you can do three. If you did 3 movies, like I said, I'd have to read the rest of the books. But if there were going to be more, let's say there's 5 or 6 Animorphs movies, I feel like this season you could make 2. I think you could make 2. I think.
Yeah.
I
If
think you
you were
have.
gonna make 3 movies for the whole season, though, this first season can't be more than the first like 30 or 40 minutes, even for a long movie. It
Well,
just
I
can't.
think you would just. Yeah, there's a lot you would miss. But I guess what I'm imagining is the first book is obviously the invasion, and I mean honestly, you can throw in any plot of the week. You just elevate it to be, and maybe you find out in that movie about Marco's mom, like there's some of the big stuff, and then I feel like movie 2 is the Elemist, and like I think Tobias's struggle and turning back into a boy is that seems like it would be the heart of the next movie. Like he would be
Yeah.
he's like the little rocket raccoon of.
Yeah, so if this was like a 40 movie series like the MCU, you could turn this one into 2 movies
I'm
and then
thinking
have an
like
Andalite
5 or
Chronicles movie.
6. You know what I mean? Like Harry Potter has like 7 movies, or like Mission Impossible has. That's there's movies that aren't just either 3 or 40. You could have like 5 or 6. It could happen.
Yeah, I guess. The problem is that all of the Chronicles are so cinematic. Like you could make every Chronicles book into its own movie and they would
Right.
all be great
But
movies.
you just can't. You just can't.
Yeah, you just can't. Maybe that's what I want. Maybe I just want them to adapt the Chronicles and not do Animorphs at all. And if you don't know about Animorphs, you'll just be like, "What? What is this building to? What the fuck is this? This is insane."
Yeah. How about this? Denis Villeneuve. It's the
Mm,
Elemist
that was
Chronicles.
good pronunciation there.
Oh, what can I say? I'm a French.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, all right, but we're gonna come up against this same discussion like when we get to the TV show. There's we could talk, and when I have more knowledge under my belt
Yeah.
about the rest of these books.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have totally different opinions by the time we get to the TV show because we're not doing that till we finish the series here.
Right, of
But
course.
yeah.
All right, but I mean, any other big thoughts about the season, the books themselves that like, or maybe the story or anything? I don't know. Is there anything else we need to
Nothing
discuss?
huge. I am. I don't know if maybe you've touched on this a little bit, but I am kind of interested. Like, what are you hoping to see moving forward with this? Like, what would you like to see? Where would you like to see Animorphs go? I kind of want to.
Huh.
We can do like a little compare and contrast here, maybe.
Interesting. I mean, I I my that I'm a sucker for big dumb sci-fi
Hmm.
stuff. But I almost am like I could just say, oh, I want more of that, but I feel spoiled by that already. Like I don't think there needs to be more of that, cuz there's just it's almost like my feeling right now after season 1 is that it's Christmas morning and I just opened 50 presents And I'm like, okay, I don't need to open any more presents. Let's actually play with some of our presents. Like the Pemalites and the Chi, we could unpack that for like 20 books, or even the Hork-Bajir. Like that can be, there's just a lot that you can mine from these characters and concepts that I don't know that we've always had the chance to slow down and get into. So I guess that's maybe what I would like to see, is more into the nitty gritty of things we already know about.
Hmm.
Um,
You're the guy in the Pictures for Sad Children comic where it's his birthday every day.
yeah, it's exactly what I am. Everybody knows the reference. um, what I'm afraid of is that, there's going to be more. I know there's ghostwriters. I don't know when they come up. Is it in the next season or not until 3?
I don't believe it's until 3. I'm trying to remember when the first ghost written book was, but it's somewhere. It definitely will be happening by the mid 20s, but I don't
Okay.
remember when it starts.
I mean, right now, just generally, I am looking at the fact that we are 13 books in, not including Chronicles, of a 54 book series. So we're what, a quarter of the way, or
Something like that, yeah.
I mean, and so we've already the pace at which these books have been going can't be kept up. So I'm concerned that either it's gonna be just filler, or I don't know. I don't know how this sustains itself for that many more books. So I guess that's like my biggest question mark, because I'm like, I know we're not getting 20 more Elamists, like that's not, you can only do it so many times. But I just don't really know
Yeah. But you
how that's
can
going to
get
go.
20 more Mortrons.
Sure.
That's the thing.
Yeah, I guess that's right. But I'm excited. I'm excited, and I'm ready to take the rest of
Yeah.
this journey. In some ways, I'm impatient. I'm like, part of me wants to have all this knowledge already, but I'm
Mhm.
taking my time.
Yeah, that's good. I don't know if this will make you feel a little bit better or worse, but obviously it won't sustain itself and it will start getting pretty filler heavy. But I don't think it ever stops being just completely batshit insane, even when it's being filler. And I don't think we really start hitting. I think we've got at least as much over again as we've done so far before we start getting into the like, okay, what are we doing parts of the series.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well,
So
let's.
there's a lot. There's a lot more to come.
I'm excited. And I can't wait to. I just want to know how I'm going to feel in the future.
Okay.
But why don't we get into our next activity?
Yeah. I don't remember what we had ordered as our next. Oh, I see it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we had decided to do a little tier list. Now, I don't know, we didn't really talk about this at all. I had kind of envisioned us trying to put together some kind of joint consensus tier list that neither of us really liked. I am under the understanding that you have made your own tier list.
Well, so I don't know if there's anyone who's not like a huge nerd. We're talking about ranking these books, but rather than just ranking them numbers 1 through 13 or 15, we say this one is A tier, B tier, C tier.
Mhm.
And also there's S tier. And for anyone who isn't a fan of Japanese video games, that means good.
Right.
But yes, I made my list in advance, thinking that was what we were going to do. Each have a separate list. Um,
To be fair, I've read these books enough that I could probably throw something together very, very quickly. It
well,
probably
now
helps you to spend time revisiting, like,
don't
your
do it
thoughts.
just yet, but
I'm
maybe
not gonna, but
you kind of, we go through each book in order, and
Mhm.
maybe you kind of say where you're going to put it, and then I could say where mine is. And I might even, I don't know that I'm married to the tier list that I made. To be honest, there were definitely at least a couple of books that I was like, how did I feel about that one? I think
Mhm.
I liked it, but did I love it? What's an A tier? And also, like, what am
Yeah.
I, I'm comparing these. It's kind of tough to be like, if I put something in A tier, that doesn't mean it's like for my list of all things that I like. I'm comparing it just from within the Animorphs
Mhm.
series, I'm not
Yeah.
saying like this is an A tier book necessarily, but it's an A tier Animorphs book. Like I feel like I don't know if you find it insulting when I make that distinction, but
No, no, not at all. Animorphs has a bunch of. It's one of those books that or book series that's like the lore from this is great to have in your brain. It's great to be able to reference it, but any individual bit of it is
right.
not necessarily great, right? And it's hard to get people to read for that reason because it's like, oh, it's just some short kids book, and it's like it's not bad, but it's kind of whatever. But it's like, no, 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 you want to have all this in your brain. It's like Dragon Ball Z, right? It's great to have watched Dragon Ball Z when you were a kid. It's like the coolest thing ever, but it's completely unwatchable, right? The fact that like every single thing has to take 5 minutes, you just can't do it. So if you just didn't experience it, it's very hard to get someone to experience it.
And I would say, like, I've been thinking about on the opposite end of that spectrum is like Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is like a kid's thing,
Hmm.
but it's like elevated to a level that is actually, in my opinion, just great. Period, without any
Yeah.
qualifiers attached.
Yeah,
And
yeah, no, it like
that's a rare thing to get for a
it
kids
is.
series. It's not like I don't mean it as like a knock against like any faults I find with these books. I don't think are the fault of K.A. Applegate necessarily. I blame the medium and the constrictions of the medium
Hmm.
and the audience and stuff like that. But
Yeah, I feel that. Although I do think that it's like a pros and cons thing. There are some serious downsides to having done the series the way that it was done, but there are some serious upsides to it too. I don't think it could have been what
yeah.
it was if it hadn't been made this way.
And I also want to do a tier list of just how our favorite covers, but we don't have time for that.
Mm. Now that's a good idea. I mean, we should discuss these covers as we go through again, I
That'll be
think.
our
Right?
on our
Just
Patreon episode.
okay.
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 Now we don't have Patreon. Stop trying to send us money. We appreciate it, but please stop. All right. So why don't we
You can
just
send
go
me
now?
money.
Do we still want to? Sure. If you want to try to make it for
No,
yourself or for both
no,
of
no,
us,
no.
I mean, I don't know. It's fine. Well, I'll be on record as saying what I think, and we can try to compromise.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to make a compromise one here. We'll see if we can find a position for these books. I feel like we'll probably come to similar conclusions about them. So I'll probably be,
I think there's
you
a
know,
couple we might disagree on,
there's
but
a couple that are gonna be disagree, but most of them I think are gonna slot in somewhere well. I think.
all right. So let's start with the invasion, number one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the invasion for me, in my memory, it would always be somewhere more like a C tier beat, but it's always just because it's um in my memory it's very much, oh yeah, this is just the book where all the stuff happens that I already know about. You've just got to tell me all of it. But I think if coming back and revisiting it when you're looking at it um just as like on its own, like I haven't seen the rest of the series and I just have to parse this book. um, I think it's a pretty cool book. I kind of want to bump it up almost to B, in a way that I might not have before. I feel like I found a little bit more appreciation for this book in this podcast.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah,
not sure where you've put it.
I put this one as a B.
Hmm.
To me, it's I do think it's a good book. I think it's a good first book, and I think you kind of I almost feel like you can't put it lower than B because if it wasn't at least a B, then why would anyone even keep reading these books? Like
Right.
this is the start, and I mean that. Maybe it's just because they recap it 500 times, but I do think that
Yeah.
opening scene is iconic, and
Yeah.
Y-
100%. Yeah, and this, like we were talking about before, this is one of the big differences between saying like, okay, let's spend a week on just this book, let's really look at this book, and let's talk about it with somebody who's never read it before and hasn't read any of the others, as opposed to, I've read 20 of these already. All right, let's just get through this scene.
Right. Yeah. And it's there's like you said, you get Tom, you get
Hmm.
introduced to the gang. There's stakes. It's interesting. I think it's a good one. So yeah, I think that's a
Yeah.
B.
The Tobias ending as well, I should point out. Like, when
Oh
you
yeah.
know it's coming because Tobias has always been a bird in every book you've ever read, you're like, yeah, get it, get him there. But if you really, like, if you're sitting down from the perspective of never seeing it before, it is, you're not expecting that to have happened so soon. And it feels like a pretty devastating blow. It's
Yeah,
just a lot of things
100%.
like that.
Yeah. No, it's a good one. Yeah, it's good. All right. Next is The Visitor.
Hmm.
This is I guess like this is the one where Rachel turns into a cat and they sneak into Chapman's office.
Yes. Um, So this is another one that in my memory, I want to start in C tier because very little of importance happens in it. And so I just kind of gloss over it in my memory. Again, I think they do a lot with the characters in ways that I didn't pay attention to in the past. I think it might be a little bit better than I usually would give it credit for. I don't know if I want to bump it all the way up to the same tier as The Invasion, though.
Yeah, maybe we should also kind of establish like to me a C tier book is okay. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's not terrible.
Yeah.
It's not amazing. It's just it's got some stuff. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that
I would agree with that. A C tier book is fine. There it's one of them that's there, and like you're okay with it, no problem. A B tier book is good, an A tier book is great, and an S tier book's like the best.
right.
Uh,
So
Going down D is like you passed, but only just barely. If every book was like this, you wouldn't pass.
right. I put The Visitor in C because I feel like I had no real complaints. I like the Melissa stuff too, but it does feel a little bit like after the first book, it just feels kind of skippable.
Hmm.
It doesn't feel like there's a lot there that's really important or Rachel's not really as Rachel-y as she gets later.
Hmm. It's nice to have that contrast, but yeah, it's not as interesting yet.
Yeah, like
Um,
but I mean, again, there's some good stuff in it. Like I really like the Melissa stuff, but maybe part of it is because I know that doesn't matter.
I
So
know. Yeah, and it is more like, when you say, "Oh, I expected coming into this it would be like the kids go out and have their fun adventures, but then there's all this insane stuff." This is kind of that book, right? This is that
right.
book where they go out and have their little mini adventure. They're breaking into their vice principal's house. Uh-oh.
Yeah, this is where it feels like when if you're reading these for the first time, you kind of go, okay, is this what every book is? I guess
Yeah, we're settling in.
right.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it's
I
the
put it in
false sense of
C.
security.
I don't know. Are you?
Yeah, I'm
You're
happy with C for this one.
okay. Great. All right. Next is The Encounter, the first Tobias
The
book
first Tobias book, yeah.
with, of
So
course, with Price Cut Polly.
with Price Cut Polly. I mean, there is no way that I can put this lower than an A. I just can't. Um, I
Uh,
I have always liked this book. It's great. I love how teenage angsty it is. I love him being a bird. I love Price Cut Polly. Um, how can you not like Tobias? I love Tobias trying to kill himself. I like all the I like the sweet moments with Tobias in Rachel's room. The little bit of teen drama romance going on. I think that's all great. I think this is minimum an A. I think that for me to determine if it's an S or an A means that I have to think harder about what an Animorphs S tier is. Because I think the gulf between like the best books and the second best books in the series is pretty big, right? If we're trying to throw some, we'll get to that near the end of this list, but
we'll get to some of that stuff. I put this one in A. I did
Mhm.
give this one an A. I like Tobias a lot. I think we said it at the time. I think the Tobias books tend to feel better written. He just has more of an interesting perspective, and I don't really remember much of the actual plot from this book. I'm looking at the Seropedia page right now, and
There
I'm
was the
like,
giant truck ship that like flew, and they turned into fish and swam up, and then that didn't work,
oh,
and
oh yeah,
Tobias single-handedly blew up the whole thing.
maybe this is a B.
No, all that stuff was in the last like 15 pages. The real meat was Tobias sitting in Jake's attic, contemplating being a bird.
I do remember thinking that stuff was really stupid, but I was really mad when they were just like, "We're fish. We'll just go in there and see what happens." But I'm willing to keep it as an A for your sake, because I do think that the Tobias parts are really good.
Hmm, that's good. I'm glad you liked them.
All right, next is The Message.
The
And this
message.
is the debut of Axe and
Yes.
also dolphins.
Okay. We might disagree on this one though, probably not by a ton. Because this is another book that I have to put as an A. Um, and it's hard for me to know how much of it is just the nostalgia because again, this is the first Animorphs book I ever read. But rereading it, I do really like the way that it's written. I think it might to me, and I don't know if I have good examples of this because we're so far out from it, but I think this might have my favorite prose of any of the Animorphs books so far. I really like how
Oh.
it's written. And uh like I said, I do like all the dolphin stuff. I like seeing our first non-Elfangor Andalite, our first Andalite on the team. I like seeing a dome ship. We'd never seen a dome ship before. Some of the trauma in it with like Marco getting his tail bitten off really hits home for me, but a lot again because it was the first one I ever saw. Um, yeah, to me, I don't think I can put this lower than A either.
Guess what, buddy? I put
Hmm.
it in A too.
Oh, I wasn't sure.
I know I like this book, even though Cassie's annoying. I didn't think she was as annoying yet in this book. And I really like the psychic message plot, and I obviously meeting Axe and going under the water and crazy dolphin shark whale fights and stuff. All that stuff. I mean, there's psychic whales. All that stuff is really
Yeah.
good.
Now, would you
So
put this
yeah,
ahead or behind of the encounter in A tier?
I I want to say maybe a little behind for me, but they're close. Definitely Encounter was ahead until you reminded me of that shit with the fish.
Yeah, you wish they were mammals.
Yeah, that's right. More of a mammal guy. I mean, we're still, even now, it's funny. We're not like that far into the series, but even thinking back, we're only at book 4 now, and I still feel like the series had yet to fully find itself at this point.
Hmm.
Which is, I guess, pretty good considering I'm still saying it's an A book. um, but I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think I would agree with you on that point that it was still figuring out kind of what it was. And I think I mentioned something like that as we were going on. I remember making a note of like this, of some, at some point where I was like, the characters feel more like themselves here or something.
Yeah, it just
When did
doesn't
Marco
feel
start
as
calling Rachel
confidently written.
Xena?
That wasn't until like book 6 or 7 or something. I
Yeah, I
I
think
don't
that's right.
remember the book, but I know it was weird.
Yeah, no, it comes later.
All right, so yeah, I don't know between those, but yeah, we'll put it. So far, we're 4 for 4. We're on the same page here.
Good, good.
Now, I'm curious to hear what you think about book 5, The Predator, in which Marco throws dumpsters at people with a capital
Right.
D.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the I don't remember. I only remember the stupid shit, not the plots. When you
Uh,
find out about Marco's mom on
yeah.
the ship. Yeah.
That's basically it. They get captured. They have some bullshit plan to get Axe back home, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't even begin to work. They get captured, and then importantly, Visser One frees them because of York politics.
So where are you putting this?
So, to me, this one feels like a B. I don't think it's on the same level as like the encounter or the message, but I do like it. I like and maybe it's because it's the first Marco book. I like Marco books a lot. I appreciate, again, slowing down and having a whole week with the book makes you really appreciate just how, like, joke and reference dense Marco's books are more than you do when, each book is more like a chapter.
So
Hmm, hmm.
this is where I'm like, I don't know how am I comparing these exactly? What do I do with these? 'Cause I think at first I looked at this and went, what happens in this one again? Oh yeah, Marco's a grill. I'm like, I like Marco books. Marco books are pretty
Hmm,
good. And then I think I remembered, the Marco's mom thing.
hmm.
I don't know. Maybe I was just feeling generous. I have this up on my list in the S tier.
Oh, damn. You're a Marco guy, huh?
I think I was
Or
just
just,
like,
is every Marco book in the S
yeah,
tier?
that's right. Maybe I think I was
I
probably
don't.
being a little overzealous.
I was gonna say
Um,
this is our consensus tier list, but I don't think I could be convinced to push this to S.
but I like Marco and I like his dad and I like I don't know. You find out about Z Space and and this has the scene in the mall
Hmm.
where
That's
they're
true.
lobsters.
Yeah, it does.
I
Oh, yeah,
mean,
it does have the lobster scene. I mean, I could bump this to A. I could easily bump this to A. I
all
think,
right. I
but
could.
the S are for real.
I think you're right. I think S is extreme.
Yeah, yeah.
I
It's very now. Right now, I have the message slightly behind the encounter. Still, where are we putting this?
well, I'd put it above those
You
other two
put it
books.
above the other two. Interesting.
I'd certainly put it above the message and the encounter. I could just honestly, this is one of those ones where I'm like, is this even how I feel? I don't know. I don't know. I did it. I put it there. But now, put it wherever you feel it fits
I'm,
best.
I'll put it right in between them. I'll
Okay.
keep it right in the middle of A, wherever the middle is.
Okay. All right. So that brings us to the next book, which is The Capture, with the one in which
Uh,
Jake gets taken over by a Yerk, and I think something else happens too, but I'm not sure.
mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is one of those books. If I had done this tier list entirely from memory and hadn't sat with this for a week, this would be a high B tier because I really, really like the parts where Jake gets infested by a Yerk. I love it's the first time we get to see from the perspective of someone infested by a Yerk. It's not something we get to see often. It's really interesting and cool, and I love the fugue. I think that's such a cool concept, and I love seeing that. I don't know if we ever get to see a fugue again directly. Um, but
What's the
unfortunately,
fugue again?
that's when the Yerk dies, the last couple hours of its life where their
Oh,
brains like
right.
meld.
Right.
Um but it's what Walter White had in that one bit of before I stopped watching Breaking Bad. He was in a fugue state in like season 1
Okay. When the Yerk crawled out of his head.
when the Yerk crawled out of his head. Um but yeah, unfortunately, that is like the last third of this book at most. And rereading it, the whole build up to the hospital and falling in the Yerk, that whole thing, it's it's interesting. It's got some neat family scenes. It's got some scenes with like, oh, the first one where Visser 3 is like bug spray all those bugs and going crazy. But it's just so boring before we get to the Yerk part. I think I have to drop it to a C.
So I like agree with everything you just said, except that I think to me the back half of this book was good enough to make it a B.
Mm-hmm.
If I was just rating that part of the book, I would put it in A.
Mm-hmm.
But I do. You're right. I mean, the other parts are just like nothing, and it feels very uneven.
Mm-hmm.
But
Was
I
this
think
Juan and Terry, or was that book 5?
this probably was Juan and
I think
Terry.
this was Juan and Terry, yeah.
Um, so
Imagine not listening to our podcast. You wouldn't be a real Animorphs fan. You wouldn't even know who Juan and Terry were.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So yeah, I mean, I can see it. A C is fair. I guess I just remembered really thinking the end was really good, but if we're thinking about it as a whole book, then yeah, it's not totally all there.
So should I keep it at the top of C, or should I? You want me to? Because I could, if like I said, if I were doing this from memory, where I'm just reading through the book, like the beginning of this book doesn't matter because I just read 3 books, so I'm just interested in the interesting parts. Then it would be high B easily. Um,
Yeah,
so
I'm
I
kind
could
of
push it to
torn.
B, but
I mean, I'm kind of torn. I like it in either one. Like I said, I'm truly split on it. Like I truly feel like it's 2 books and one of them isn't
mhm,
that good and one's really good. So it's very hard for me to say.
mhm.
But it's like, yeah, I don't know. Just put it in C, I guess.
Okay, it'll be a C tier.
I'm letting you have some wins now in case I have to fight later.
Uh oh. I'm not gonna give up
Uh,
easily just because you're.
I think you might have to. All right, the next one is The Stranger, which is not just something I give myself when I'm alone. It's also a book. It's book number 7. And this is the one with the Ellimist.
Yeah.
As
Oh,
as a Friends episode would call it.
I wonder if we'll disagree on this one. This one to me, this one is this was another one of those books where I need to know what an S tier book means. Because right now this is leading the pile in A for me, if it's in A at all. It might be an S tier book. I really love this book. I I think this is some of the better Ellimist stuff in terms of him bullshitting around. All this early stuff is great with him bullshitting around, but I really love his fun little twist where he's like the whole book, nothing of what he's doing matters in the way that you think it matters. It matters for something entirely different. He's got his own little plot. I love the future world that they go to. I think that's great. I love Rachel getting just completely out of control, um, and unmanageable for the first time. I love seeing just her regular issues dealing with her parents' divorce. I think this is a great book. This right now is leading the pile for me.
Yeah, this one's a D for me. I didn't no.
Hmm.
I put it in A. I put it in A. The more you talk about it, I'm thinking, yeah, maybe it is an S. Maybe it is an S. I mean, there is. I don't know that anything really quite tore my mind apart the way that the Ellimist did. And you do get more stuff for Rachel. You get that crazy future scene with her, right? That's the one where she sees her future
Hmm.
self.
Yeah, we're having eaten Tobias.
You get the EGS tower.
Yeah, you get her first bear. The first time she's ever morphed a bear. That's her standard go-to morph now.
Yeah, I'm starting to think if that's not an S tier book, then what is? I guess.
Hmm. I mean, I can think of a couple books that I like better than this one that aren't
Sure,
like.
sure. I'm not saying it's the best,
Mhm.
but I do think I don't know. I don't really have any criticisms.
Yeah,
I do think it's got a lot of good stuff
yeah.
going for it.
I'm happy to pop this into S for the time being, and then we can. I don't actually know when we do our next recap episode. I don't know if we're gonna add to this tier list or if we're gonna
We're gonna have
make a
to.
new one.
We'll figure
Uh,
that out.
we'll figure that out.
All right. Next, we're on book 8. Oh, sorry. Actually, next we're doing Megamorphs.
Mm,
So the first Megamorphs book, I'll just start and say for me this was a B tier. I like this book. I thought it's not really important. I could see it being a C, but I think the plot is fun, and I really like the perspective switching of it. So
hmm. Yeah, interesting. Because I definitely was putting this in C tier, for sure. To me, it's got a lot of memorable moments, but overall, it's fairly forgettable to me. I guess the perspective switching is kind of interesting.
come on, they
But
go
I
to the
don't know that it
swimming
was all that
pool.
well handled in this particular book, because it felt like there were too many parts where you're just overlapping and retelling the same story in ways that were less interesting.
Hmm.
Like it didn't feel as controlled as maybe the later Megamorphs with multiple perspectives are. Uh, like I think again, this is coming back to the adaptation thing. If you were adapting Animorphs into a TV series, there's a lot of moments in this that I would be like, yeah, I want this moment. I want Marco driving Cassie's dad's car and wrecking it. I want Cassie spying on Chapman in the mall as a fly. But do I actually want like the plot of this book?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Valik. I love the Valik, the pet.
Yeah, his pet. Yeah, I mean that could, but that would never be like a favorite for me. That would just be a thing.
Um,
Could
yeah.
I?
Listen, I'm do what you feel is right, but for me, in my heart, it's a solid B. I think it's
Mm,
good.
mm. I
I
mean,
think it's
maybe
good.
I could bump it to the current bottom of the B pile here. I mean, this is our shared tier list, so I could
Right.
bump it up, right? Between the two of us, I'm like it's fine, it's not bad, and you're like I like it, so I think that's fine. It's a little better than average for between the two of us.
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be offended by a C. I would understand a C.
Hmm.
I just do think it's a fun book. All right, next is The Alien. So this is Axe's first book. He goes to school, and what else does he do?
He's gotta. He's
Oh,
he
right, all
he
the crazy
talks to the
stuff.
home world. He's got to kill Visser 3, but
Yeah,
he
yeah,
doesn't.
yeah. He accidentally Goodwill Hunting's Marco
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Um. Yeah, I do quite like this book. I like any book from Axe's perspective. I love all the times where he's just describing humans or humans. I mean, I like the brown globules, right? When he's eating brown globules in the movie theater. That's the kind of thing that I like. I like him eating food off the floor. I like him talking about the Ungakic females that Klingons look like. Um, or however you said that. They never come up again, so hopefully I got it right. um and I like the Goodwill Hunting scene. I don't
Sure.
know. Is this an A tier book?
Mm. Well, I put it in B.
Yeah, I definitely. I mean, currently the bottom of A tier is the Message. I don't like it as much as any of the other books in A tier. I don't think.
Mm.
So maybe that does make it a B tier, since I wasn't sure about. I was already starting with the Predator in B.
Yeah, yeah. It might be my favorite of the B tiers.
Hmm. Oh, for sure. I definitely like it better than the other books in the B tier.
But yeah, it's a really solid one. I don't know that it's quite a home run for me, but it is X stuff is a lot of fun. I
Hmm.
think I said at the time I wished this had come earlier, but
Yeah. Yeah, it would be nice to get more Axe books. I feel like Axe books often, I, they might not. I don't know. Well, you know what? No, maybe I don't feel that way. I'll hold that thought until we see more Axe books.
okay. Or you could give it an A for Axe too.
Yeah, or an X.
I don't know that we have that. All right, so
That's
it's
the
somewhere
top one, the X tier.
in B. Is that what we're doing?
Yeah, putting it at the top of B.
All
All
right,
right,
now
this next one's easy. This one, we don't even. Well, I'll
no,
just put this
well,
one. I know where we're putting this one. So,
number
like, we
nine.
agree on this one.
Number 9 is The Secret, the book in which Cassie takes care of skunks.
Right. This is S tier. This is the top of the pile. No
Now,
better book than this one.
I have a feeling that even though you will defend this book, I think that even you will agree to compromise and make this a C tier book and see reason. On my personal list, this is a D. This is my lowest ranked of the first season.
Yeah, I can't abide a D. That's for sure. Now I was debating
Do
to
you think
myself.
there's a book worse than? So you like this more than? Well, we'll get to that, I guess, when we finish all the books. I won't ask you to reveal your thoughts on other books yet.
Yeah, no. So I actually was debating to myself whether I would put this in C or like low B, because I do like a lot of those skunk parts that you hated.
I will not allow you to put this in B. It's not allowed.
Right. This is one of those books that neither one of us is going to agree with where it goes. Probably. I Yeah, I mean, I do like this book for sure better than The Visitor, and it's so hard to say whether I like it better than The Capture because I like it much better than the first two-thirds of The Capture, but nowhere near as much as the last third. Um,
Mm-hmm. I think this
so
is
I
the
don't know.
only book that I truly was bored reading. Like
Mm.
I really like just wished I didn't have to read it.
I'm very curious because I'm just going to tell you right now, in the next season, my favorite non-Chronicles book is going to appear, and it's going to be a Cassie book, and I'm very curious if we're going to agree or if
Is
you're
it
going to
the
hate
horse
this book.
book? Is
Well,
it the horse?
you'll find out when I
Okay.
tell you.
Okay. I'll find out when you tell me. Well, it's one of two, I'm assuming.
It's one of two, yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, we don't quite hit 24 this run because it's so short. Normally we would have, but
Well, okay. It's in C. That's all I know.
it's in C. Yeah, I think that's reasonable to put it in C. And
Yeah.
I can certainly I mean, if we're averaging our opinions, I can certainly bump it down and stick it toward the bottom of C. Um
Yeah.
I it's not clear to me that it should be a B. I do think there's some interesting things going on in there. I do like Cassie's hypocritical moralizing, and I like her self-awareness about her hypocrisy. And this is the book that gives us the scene where Cassie is like
That's the worst part is the
raging.
hypocrisy.
Yeah, exactly. Or where she's raging mad at Tobias. Like, if there's one scene from this book that I would want to keep, uh, it would be that scene. I love the bit where Tobias knows where the skunks are because he has eaten one, and Cassie is fucking pissed. We don't see Cassie get pissed very often, right? We see her get upset, we see her get determined, we see her, but we don't
Whining.
really see her get like filled with rage. In like just a completely unreasonable way. And I like that. I like that character beat a lot.
Yeah, for me it would be the scene with Visser 3 and the grape juice, but
Right, yeah. I mean,
stop.
that honestly, of all the stupid Visser 3 bits, though, that one's one of the less iconic ones.
We gotta. There's only. I don't. You're talking a little too much. This was supposed to be potentially a shorter episode. This was going to be our
Listen,
our
I just
palate
have
cleanser.
I have to defend the skunk book.
We've already talked about these books.
Fine.
Right. The next one is book
You're
10.
getting anxious.
I'm just seeing how much we have left to cover and envisioning the 2 hour 30-minute mark, and I don't feel this episode is supposed to be that. Maybe I'm
All right.
fighting
Maybe
a
this
feudal
took two.
battle.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. I honestly, I had no idea how long this podcast was supposed to be. I was just like, I want to take a break to think about where we've been. But
Well, we're thinking
Yep.
about it now.
We sure are fucking thinking about it right now.
Now that we've had our take a drink every time we talk for 5 minutes about how long the episode is, we can go to book number 10, which is the android, the Pemalites and the Chi.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is a big one. I'll tell you, I put this one as an A.
Yeah, I'm putting this as an A too, for sure. Yeah. I think this one's great. I love Pemalites. I love Chi. And I'm less bored by the non-Pemalite parts because there's still androids that they're trying to figure out.
And there's Marco.
And it's a Marco book. Yeah. What
So
more could you want?
probably should be an S tier, but it's fine. And it's for Eric King, our good friend.
Yeah, our good friend Eric King. Do you want to bump it to the top of A tier or put it maybe more in the middle?
I don't know. I could see it being near the top. I don't know if it's number one, but I like it more than The Message and the Predator. Definitely.
Okay. I could put it below The Encounter then maybe.
It's got the android in it. All right. Next is The Forgotten. Now this is, I think, our next. I don't know how much we disagree. For me, The Forgotten, and this is the one where they travel through time and become monkeys. Mm-hmm. This and Megamorphs to me are both very similar in the sense that they are not really consequential and not like the best books, but they're just a fun adventure that they're a little ride that I went on and I enjoyed. So for me, both of them are in B tier, but I think you didn't like this one.
No, I did not like this one. This one, I just...
They turn into monkeys. It's fun.
I don't know. I just don't. There's too much. They're running around the jungle, and I just don't.
You get to go to the jungle.
It's not memorable. I don't.
That's
care
memorable
that much.
to me. You don't ever get to go to the jungle in the other books.
I don't know.
Boring suburbia, and
it just doesn't even matter. They can't turn into monkeys even anymore. Like it just doesn't. None of it mattered.
Yeah, but
the whole thing got erased.
It's just fun.
You
gotta live in the moment. Well,
I don't know.
Where would you put this as low as D, or is it
I would put this as low as D. Oh yeah,
boy.
Yeah, no, I would put this in a D for sure.
We have to put it in C, following the logic of The Secret.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. If you would put it all the way in B, we can put it in C.
But now, here's the thing. I don't. Oh, is that not the thing? You have a thing? What's your thing?
Well, my thing is that we're running up against this problem of what's the lowest book. And right now, it would have to probably either be The Forgotten or The Secret, unless we compromise by putting The Visitor beneath both of them, just to make
the point
us
of
happy.
tiers is that you don't have to rank them individually.
I know, but I'm ordering them within here.
We'll worry about that later, but I just want to say, I wouldn't defend. I don't feel as strongly about The Forgotten maybe as you do about this. I dislike The Secret more than I like The Forgotten. If that makes sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to, I mean, like the problem is that like a lot of it is more in the moment. I think, cause like if I think back memory wise on The Secret, it's like, yeah, it's fine. It's whatever. I'm not in love with it. But at the time, I do like seeing it, and that's because a lot of the stuff that it meanders around is my favorite stuff in the series. There are other books that do it better, that I like better, which is why it's less memorable to me. But I don't know. I still feel the need to defend it.
Okay, whatever. We're moving past that. The next book is The Reaction. Rachel gets an allergic crocodile, and she and Cassie are horny.
Yeah. To me,
Jeremy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, with the yeah. All that.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, this one also feels like a C tier, but it feels like the highest of the C tier easily.
I definitely
it could be in B.
I put this squarely in C.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. Maybe I'm still. I think I liked the capture stuff more. I gave that one more slack than you, but you may be right. It may be the highest of the C's, but it's definitely like it's fun. It's a fun. There's some fun stuff, but it's not great.
Yeah, I mean, I could put it below the capture. Because I could just be grumpy about it because I liked it so much, and then when because I liked it so much, and then when I had to spend time with it, I had to realize that I didn't like so much of it. So I'm like, meh.
Yeah, that's fine. All right, now that brings us to our last mainline book for this episode, which is number 13, The Change.
Mm-hmm.
We re-encounter the Elemist. Tobias becomes a boy again. I don't know, but I'm thinking this might be an S.
I'm agreeing that this might be an S. Um, is it even higher than The Stranger? It might be. I love Hork-Bajir. I'm gonna love any book with Hork-Bajir in it more than it deserves, probably. But like, this is where you first get to see Jarrah and Ket. Jarrah and Ket, and there's more Tobias being a bird stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we
I'm
already
like,
established, I think the Tobias books are often some of the best, and by often, I mean both times I've read them.
mhm.
And um, yeah, all that you get to all that Hork-Bajir stuff is really cool. The Elemist comes back, and it's very a big consequential character change happens in this book. It's hard to beat that level of stakes, I think.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's definitely an S. I don't know whether
Yeah,
it's above the Stranger. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. I don't know.
yeah. Maybe I do because I also love the Elemis bullshit in this too, where it's like he gives him what he wants. Ha ha. I like it.
Yeah, I like it, even though I mean I fucking hate him, but I like it.
Yeah, that's why it's good.
Now, all right, this brings us to the last one, which we just covered, the Andalite
Yeah.
Chronicles. We will not be ranking each part separately,
No.
just the book itself. I'm pretty sure. I mean, I know where this is going, and I know where
Yeah.
you're gonna put it, and that's S tier.
Yeah. This is S tier. This is kind of what I'm talking about earlier on. This is, I mean, the Chronicles books. They're S tier books, and the gulf between this book and like The Stranger and the Change is pretty vast to me. Right,
Now,
like this one is much more like a real book, like you said, whereas the other
yeah.
ones are very good Animorphs books.
Yeah, you could almost give this to somebody of us just like, oh, you've read Stranger in a Strange Land or something, like just put this like if you told someone this was like a 70s sci well, it doesn't really make sense because there's time travel, but if it wasn't dated, you know what I mean? It almost fits
Mhm.
into that mold. Uh, now I might sound crazy for saying this after, I said I put the Predator in S tier, but I did almost want to knock this down to an A, honestly, solely because of how much I feel like the Chapman stuff is a mark against this book to me.
Yeah,
Like,
I understand that. Like, it literally, if she had just changed his name in there, and she could
yeah.
she could have even said he's going to be important to the Yerk War. We just haven't seen him yet. I don't know. Fuck it. Who cares?
Yeah, like that's the thing is like other S tier and even A tier books, there isn't always like one big flaw. And to me, this book has that big flaw, which
Mhm.
maybe stands out more because the rest of it is so good. But
Mhm.
ultimately, I have to like examine it as a whole and be like, how can it not? In terms of the scope of this book and
Yeah.
what happens, I just don't see how it could be lower than it has to be the kind of the
Yeah.
epitome of what you want.
Yeah, absolutely. Plus tax
The
on
gold standard.
apologia.
Uh, why are you trying to make me lower it?
It's
So
collaborative.
maybe we'll put a link to our current tier list for this in the description if you want to look at it, so we won't like recap it. But we have so by our standards, each of us would have put a book in D, but because the other person liked it, we don't have anything lower than C.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we've done here.
And we have 7 of the 15 books, so about half, a little less than half, we have as A or better. And only 4 of them are in C. So like, for that's a pretty good batting average for our first set.
Yeah, no, this is not bad. I think that the opening books are strong for sure in this series.
Yeah. So that's interesting stuff. We can stick on this subject a little bit if you'd like to hear some sharing.
I would love to hear some sharing.
As we move into the third hour of our show here, everybody go make a drink.
Yeah, that's okay, because I think most of the rest of what I was thinking about here doesn't really have to happen if it doesn't need to.
Well, we have a lot of sharing.
Good. Yeah, let's do all of our sharing.
Well, I'm going to start with the subreddit.
Mm.
So I made a post on the Animorphs subreddit 3 days before this recording, but they're an active bunch over there. We're recording a little earlier than normal, but we already have some good comments to discuss.
This is exciting.
And I basically asked people the question we were asking ourselves in this episode. I said, what do you think on the first year and a half of Animorphs, aka, like the first season? And people, as you might guess about Animorphs fans, they can be verbose. So I'm not gonna read all of these comments, but I will skim through some of them and we will link it again in our show notes. So someone named Conscious Star 6831 says that books 1 through 10 were some of the best in the series. Says that 9 is mediocre, but the others were great. Which one is that the secret?
That is the secret, yeah.
Great. All right. So I'm gonna make some friends in this comment section.
Okay,
good. He mentions book 1, book 3, book 4 and 5, book 6. This person has mixed feel. I'm saying he. I guess I don't know. They have mixed feelings about book 7. A controversial opinion. Conscious Star loves Megamorphs 1.
Ooh, interesting.
Likes that Axe got to narrate for the first time, and that not being able to morph is a fun twist. Book 8, first official illustration of an Andalite, Conscious Star says. So that's worth noting. Learning about Ciro's kindness, etc. Yeah, that's a big deal. He or she or they goes through a lot of the similar things. So, good thoughts generally there. We have someone named, feel free to interrupt if you have responses to
I know. So far it seems like they're just they're just recapping. They could have listened to our podcast and then they'd have known all this stuff.
For real. Torrential, where the T is a 7 in the second T. Cool name.
I don't know about
cool
this
name.
person.
No, that's a cool name.
I already am not.
It's a cool name.
I just don't know.
They said they think this period was the best the books ever got in overall quality. They said the final run has a great plot, and season 2 has a great run. I won't get into the nitty gritty, but they thought this was the best overall. Hot takes from them. The first 2 books aren't great for pacing and prose. And they think they made a good decision in having a roughly 50-50 split between wins and losses in these books. That's not something I know if I really picked up on, but
yeah, I wonder what counts as a loss. I mean, I guess I could see that. Maybe I'll keep track of that. Wins and losses. That's interesting.
Yeah. They also, by the way, someone asked about seasons and Torrential said, this is how I would break it down. And they did it exactly the way we did it. So,
okay, good.
We're not,
so we're on the
crazy.
Right track.
Yeah. If Torrential likes it, then we like it. Low Gas 677 just said, the Andalite Chronicles, the book I most want to be adapted is also the least adaptable. And someone else said, less adaptable than the Elemist Chronicles? So, TBD.
Yeah,
TBD.
I'm not even sure.
Now this I think is very interesting. DB Seems with a Z said, or maybe it's like Dragon Ball Seam Z, I don't know. Said they're glad they didn't read Andalite Chronicles until after, like, when they were in the 20s, and they liked it better because Tobias didn't learn about all that crap that happens yet. So for them, it was like more of a kind of like a machete cut thing where you don't find about Vader's dad yet. And I'm kind of not reading the rest of the full post because I'm afraid it might have spoilers in it.
Yeah, that's reasonable, I think.
But I thought that was an interesting perspective.
Yeah,
A lot of
I think that is very. I We'll come back to that when it's relevant because I wonder about that sometimes. If you read these books
mm,
out of order, if you get that kind of cut.
yeah, yeah. A couple people mentioned how they were particularly hyped for book 13, where I guess did it say like coming out next month or something in the books? Did you know what was next?
At the end of every book, there is a preview chapter or so from the
Mm,
next book. I don't know
okay.
which chapter was from 13, but you do have some idea.
Well, people were just excited that it was a Tobias book called The Change, so they were, I
Mm.
guess, anticipating that there would be a change.
Yeah, a lot of people had been asking her to give Tobias, to turn Tobias back into a human, effectively, and let him morph with the group. And so I think also part of her little Tobias conundrum was a way to kind of stick it to those fans and be like, oh, you want him to morph again, huh?
Now I got one you're gonna like here. I got
Hmm.
don't blame me for being biased. I'm giving both sides equally. AJ
Let's hear it.
Tayu says The Secret is a standout book for me from those 15. It was the first book I ever read. It got me hooked on the series and made me appreciate how terrifying yet adorable a skunk can be. So, The Secret has its fans.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I do overplay my love of The Secret. I think it's fine. I think it's
Oh,
fine, and
now
I
you're
generally like
backtracking?
it.
That you just don't want to be
No.
associated with AJ Tayu. Now we have a
No,
couple.
I do think it's a little bit overstating it to say it's a standout of the first
Well, for
series.
them, it was. I think it's a more
For
personal
them.
choice.
That's fair. Okay. Yeah, I mean if it's the first book you read, I'm sure, yeah.
Now, a couple more people gave like in depth. They went book by book, so you can read this in the link if you want to. But I'm not going to read it all. But Silent Porcupine commented, and I don't know. They're excited about all of them. They said they thought book 6 was where they picked up the pace and got interesting after Jake got infested. Yeah. Yeah. They love the Elemist. Who doesn't? Oh, for 9, they said this book seems universally disliked, but I found the questions on morality pretty interesting.
There you
At
go.
least I know I'm a part of the majority, it sounds like.
Yeah,
Although it,
I do think book 9 is generally considered lower than I would put it.
they weren't a fan of Megamorphs. But their favorites were 1, 7, 8, 13, and Andalite Chronicles. And then JD Keys 182 said, similar to before, they said this phase is definitely the most consistently solid. And they even gave ratings to every single book. Most of them I'm seeing a lot of 8s. They gave book 6 a 10 out of 10. Oh, that's The Capture. They gave that a 10. So how
Yeah,
about that?
interesting.
They said it starts out slow, but once he's infested, see, that's what I'm saying. I think
Yeah.
those parts are worth it. But anyway, I don't know about 10 out of
Yeah, I
10.
mean, maybe they are. Maybe they are. Maybe I was just being. I had never seen it in that light before, and I got mad. I don't know.
Didn't wasn't a big fan of book 11 or 12. They gave 6.5, but they had pretty high praise overall. So yeah, people seem to agree, and I don't know if you agree or if you want to say even if you agree or not that these books are the best of the, or at least the most consistent of the bunch.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with that. I think that there are some higher highs to be hit, but I also think that there are lower lows. I'm not sure that. I think in season 2 we might find that we're still averaging around the same, but we might find some ones that just like one or two outliers that aren't great. I'm trying to just like recount every book in my head. I don't know, season 2 is not that bad. But
We'll
it's
get
it's
there.
pretty good. It's pretty good. But I do think overall, yeah, we're gonna start seeing more and more we just agree it's a D book, or we just
Mm-hmm.
agree that it's just definitely a C. It's not like a one of us thinks it's a B and one doesn't, or like a third of this book is an A and 2/3 of this book is a D or something like that.
Got it. Now I have one more. We have an actual email we got, which I was going
Mm,
to read on this show, but it's not necessarily, it's a more general question about Andalites that's not about our season 1 retrospective. So, in the interest of time, we could save it for next week, or we could read it now and just decide this will be a 2.5 hour episode and go fuck yourselves. What
No,
do you?
I think we could save it for next week.
All right.
Honestly,
I feel bad because it came in a while ago, but we're gonna get to it. If
okay.
spam, it's a very nice email. If Spam Viking is listening, just know
Yeah,
next episode we'll open the show with your email.
we love you, Spam Viking.
Yeah,
I do love Spam and Vikings.
yeah. I mean, that could be your
It
moniker.
could. It honestly could.
It's
And
pretty
Monty
good.
Python.
And we had more things planned for this episode. We are going to talk about our listener stats. We
Yeah.
and
I don't know that we need to do that. I just kind of was like, well, we spent the first couple episodes like looking at that all the time, and then we dropped out of that because who wants to hear it? And I was like, well, they got to listen to it now because we don't got to. But then we spent 2 hours talking about other shit.
I will just briefly I want to say, because I do think it's interesting. I really don't know how or why this is the case, and maybe it's just random, but I would assume that our most popular episode would be the first episode, and then it would gradually decrease because most people would listen to it in order, and not
I would
everyone
think.
will continue. So it just kind of makes sense. But for whatever reason, like arts now, and that may for our top 3 listened episodes at this point, they are books 1 through 3, and then coming in at 4th place is book 7, The Stranger.
Because people love it. They love book 7.
And then is our introduction, then is book 6, and then it just kind of gets a little more random. Like book 4 is kind of in the middle, and some of these they just came out later or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting. Yeah, I do wonder if a lot of people if the Elemist is such a dramatic point in the series that more people just wanted to hear our reactions to it.
Yeah, I mean that could have been. What is this? Before I give up on this podcast, what does this guy think of the Elemist? I just gotta know.
Just gotta hear him lose his mind about that.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder. Maybe people are listening to our podcast the way that you read Animorphs books. They just kind of go whatever happens to be most recent. If they missed a couple weeks, I'll pop back and look at that one.
Yeah, it could be. It could be. Well, I think we have a consistent audience size currently, according to our stats, of 34 people.
Yeah, that's better than I was hoping for.
And some episodes have upwards of 40, 50, 60 listens.
Wow.
So, it's an exciting, the fact that we even got any emails at all from anybody, we appreciate it. It means a lot to us. Even the people from us, 12% of our listener base, which according to this are in Australia. So, for your sake, I hope we get a book where they turn into a kangaroo soon.
Don't hope too hard for that.
Well, if you want to keep the Australians, maybe change your attitude.
Okay.
Maybe
yeah.
you know what? Oh, you know what? They probably loved the reaction. Because remember when we got a special visit from Steve Irwin?
Yeah, that's right. I do remember. We had a special. Yeah, we need more guests on our podcast. That's what this podcast is lacking: is guests.
Yeah. Well, is there anything else we need to say, or can we wrap up and call it quits for this one?
I think this is pretty good. I'm pretty happy with where we are here.
We could probably just cut the first 10 minutes. And go another 10. No, we'll keep it all in. I think it was a good discussion, and the important thing is we did what we set out to do ultimately, which was a season 1 recap, and we did it.
Yeah, we did do that. We got that done. It happened.
If there's anything that you'd like to hear us do in future episodes, or if you have differing opinions or anything like that you want to throw in, email us, theyerkyboys@gmail.com. Eventually, we will read it on the show, assuming it's still running and you're not listening to this 3 years from now when we've already finished all the books. In that case, you're fucked. You can also follow me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @Quentz. And I have another podcast called Geeks on Trial, which you can find on any podcast platform, perhaps on the very one you're using to listen to this right now. and I recommend it. That's all I got.
That's all you got. Yeah, and if the listeners wanted to follow me on Twitter, they could do so at DogTimesMcGee. Thanks everyone for listening. Tune in next time when we'll be talking about Book 14, The Unknown, in which Cassie turns into a horse on the Yerky Boys.